On a bitter December morning in 1987, a man walking across Ilkley Moor in Yorkshire, England, claimed to have seen and photographed what he believed was an extraterrestrial being. Is there any truth behind his account, or was it nothing more than an elaborate hoax? Join me as we investigate the mystery of the Ilkley Moor alien. Ilkley Moor in West Yorkshire, England, appears much as one might imagine. Vast stretches of boggy grassland, a stark yet strangely beautiful landscape of low hills and shallow valleys scattered with rocky outcrops and tangled thickets of trees and wild brush. It is an unsettling place, heavy with mystery and long shrouded in obscurity. It has often been said that Ilkley Moor can frighten you to death even in daylight, and at night it becomes far more ominous, especially in winter when dense northern fogs roll in without warning. Lying between the towns of Ilkley to the north and Cayley to the south, the moor is steeped in folklore and legend. Countless boulders and towering rock formations bear strange carved markings, some believed to be over 10,000 years old. For centuries, residents of the surrounding settlements have reported all manner of strange phenomena, from unexplained lights in the sky to sightings of bizarre creatures roaming the moorland. One such encounter, which occurred during the 1980s, would eventually capture international attention. The story begins at 7 a.m. on December the 1st, 1987, when Philip Spencer, an off-duty police officer, set out on foot across the moor toward his father-in-law's home in a neighbouring village. Under normal circumstances, he would never have chosen this route. Crossing the moor in darkness was hardly appealing. However, it offered a significant shortcut compared to the surrounding roads. And as an amateur photographer, Spencer hoped to capture the unusual light effects created by the rising sun filtering through the early morning mist for which the moors were well known. For that reason, he brought his camera along. Covering nearly 40 square miles, and often battered by thick fog and strong winds, the moors can be unforgiving even under ideal conditions. Losing one's way is dangerously easy. As a precaution, Spencer also packed a compass. The morning was bitterly cold, frost crunching beneath his boots as he stepped onto the open grassland. A chance observer might have watched his dark silhouette slowly dissolve into the fog, and wondered whether he was exceptionally brave or utterly mad. Despite his misgivings, the walk initially proved uneventful, even strangely pleasant. But at some point along the way, Spencer noticed that daylight seemed to have arrived suddenly. This struck him as odd, as he had no memory of seeing the sun rise over the eastern horizon. He gave it little thought. He had just reached a small copse and was preparing to take photographs when a subtle movement to his right caught his attention. He turned his head, and what he saw would remain etched in his memory for the rest of his life. Roughly 50 metres away, standing on the gentle slope of an escarpment, was a small greyish figure, no more than 4 feet tall. At first, in the dim light, Spencer assumed he was looking at a child wearing a costume, but as his eyes adjusted, it became immediately clear that the figure was neither human nor animal. In fact, it resembled nothing he had ever seen before. Its head was disproportionately large, and its eyes were wide, black, and almond-shaped. One arm was raised, gesturing unmistakably as if to warn him not to come any closer. Stunned but composed, Spencer raised his camera once the initial shock passed and managed to take a single photograph just before the figure turned and retreated up the escarpment. Though trailing behind, he hurried after it, reaching the crest just in time to witness a dome-shaped craft rocket into the sky at astonishing speed, so fast that he had no chance to take another photograph. Spencer stood in silence, staring up at the darkening clouds, struggling to process what he had just seen. When he finally gathered himself, he searched the surrounding area for any explanation, but there was nothing. No trace of the creature, no sign of the craft. Disoriented, he retrieved his compass to orient himself. Though certain he was facing north, the needle stubbornly pointed south. Familiar with the moors, Spencer assumed the compass was faulty and chose to trust his instincts instead. Continuing on, he eventually arrived at his father-in-law's village, confirming that the compass had indeed been incorrect. More anomalies became apparent when he checked the village clock. It read just after 10 a.m. He then recalled noticing earlier that it seemed far lighter than it should have been. The walk should have taken no more than an hour, yet he had set out at 7 a.m. and arrived after 10. Somehow, 3 hours had passed. Even accounting for stopping to take photographs, this made no sense. Spencer realised that either he had misjudged the time entirely, or he was missing time altogether. Given what he had witnessed, the thought deeply unsettled him. Remembering the photograph, he had the film developed within 24 hours. Examining the prints, he found that he had indeed captured something on film, though the image quality was undeniably poor. Still, he believed the photograph was significant. Through official channels, he contacted UFO investigator Peter Howe. Initially skeptical during their phone conversation, Howe felt the story sounded almost too extraordinary to be true. However, after meeting Spencer in person and reviewing the photograph, he became convinced he was dealing with a credible and sincere individual. Huff arranged for the photograph to be examined by multiple specialists. A wildlife photography expert confirmed that the figure, if it was a living being, did not match any known local animal and appeared distinctly humanoid. Next, the image and its negatives were sent to Kodak Laboratories in Hemel Hempstead. Their analysis confirmed the figure was present in the original photograph and had not been superimposed. Finally, the image was sent to the United States for digital enhancement and further study. Dr. Bruce Maccabee, an optical physicist with the US Navy, concluded that the slow shutter speed required for low light conditions had rendered the film too grainy for definitive analysis. He closed his investigation stating, "I had great hopes this case would prove conclusive. Sadly, circumstances prevented that." Unmoved by Maccabee's assessment, Howe focused on other aspects of the case, particularly the compass. Testing confirmed that its polarity had been reversed, suggesting exposure to a powerful magnetic field. In the months that followed, Spencer began experiencing disturbing dreams and grew increasingly troubled by the missing time. Howe recommended regressive hypnosis. They contacted Dr. Jim Singleton, who agreed to conduct the session on March 16, 1988. Under hypnosis, Spencer described a remarkable encounter. He recalled spotting the strange being ahead of him, roughly 4 feet tall, with a large head, dark eyes, and greyish-green skin. Its arms were unusually long, its legs short and thin, almost atrophied. Its most striking feature was its disproportionately large hands. As the entity approached, Spencer found himself frozen, unable to move. He then remembered floating horizontally about 2 feet above the ground as the creature led him forward, pulling him effortlessly, like a helium balloon. They reached a strange craft atop the escarpment, after which he blacked out. He awoke inside a bright circular room where a voice calmly instructed him not to panic. Though able to move, he remained still as 3 similar beings examined him. He was then shown 2 films. The first depicted humanity's relentless destruction of the planet through war, pollution, and environmental collapse. The second film remains unknown. Spencer was instructed never to speak of it, and he has refused to do so, even under hypnosis. Afterward, the voice asked if he understood what he had been shown. He nodded, blacked out once more, and awoke back on the moor. A movement to his right caught his attention, and it was then that he saw and photographed the small humanoid figure with no memory at that moment of his alleged abduction. So what did Spencer photograph that morning? Is there any truth to his account? The image cannot be definitively debunked, but neither can it be accepted as proof. The quality is simply too poor. It could depict an extraterrestrial being, or just as easily a bush or mannequin. Years later, another investigator returned to the site and photographed himself from the same distance to establish scale. The comparison showed that whatever appeared in the image matched Spencer's reported height. Moreover, there was no bush or hedge at the exact location, casting doubt on the idea that the figure was simply foliage. Skeptics have been quick to label the case a hoax, and indeed fabricating such a story would not have been impossible. They often point to the awkward angle of the figure, suggesting it appears propped up, much like a mannequin. Others note that the compass could have been tampered with before the walk even began. perhaps most criticised, is the alleged abduction itself. Why, skeptics ask, would advanced beings choose to show visions of humanity's destruction to a simple policeman with no influence or power to change the course of the world? Yet skeptics are no better equipped to speculate on extraterrestrial motives than anyone else. And one fact remains undeniable: Spencer never wavered in his account. He appeared sincere and sought little, if any, financial benefit from his story. One must then ask what motive he would have had to fabricate such a hoax, particularly given that Philip Spencer is a pseudonym and his true identity remains unknown. Fame, it seems, was never his goal. Public opinion remains sharply divided. Believers see compelling evidence, skeptics see nothing at all. Ultimately, interpretation depends entirely on perspective, and for that reason, the case of the Ilkley Moor alien remains unresolved.